Hi, I'm Keith Reynolds, and I'm here from the Rock and Roll Room with SmarketPlace Live. Welcome, and welcome, Tom. I got, there we go. Welcome, Tom.
All right. Cheers. Glad to be here again with you, with market share growth experts. I too am in a whiskey room. What does that say about us?
We're in the virtual Rock and Roll Room, and we've been producing this. We started out in your basement where we have the secret doors that open into the guitars and whiskey bar with the bar from Red Rocks Stadium. You got an amazing place, and so that's been the theme of our experiment here with SmarketPlace Live.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
All right, well, let's get to the show here. We produce this in order to show off the podcast ecosystem. So it's as much about this conversation we're going to have with Danielle Hughes as it is about what we get out of that. We can write a blog. We've got all kinds of social media, and basically for a few hours of time, you get a month's worth of content. And with that commercial out of the way, Danielle, welcome.
Thank you so much. So great to be here. I feel like which of these things is not like the other with my background, but that's okay. I feel like we need your items in my space, and then we have a party.
There you go.
Perfect. We can all cheers.
That's right. Correct.
That's the way we end this with a good cheers. I was the kid. I was the kid when we watched that on Sesame Street with my hand up, to the TV. Pick me. I know which one it is.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. I think we've known each other for going on 2, maybe 3 years. We met on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've taken your classes, and you've shaped a lot of my own personal branding.
That makes me happy. Yay.
Through our work together. And one of them was, let your hair down a little bit today and go with what, makes you you, and the rock and roll thing fit. And Tom and I met last year and on a networking event and found that both of our first concert in 1978 was Boston on the same tour, him in LA, me in Chicago. And so that's the unfolding of this, but literally the work that we've done together gave me the confidence to just say, what the heck,
Oh, I love that.
And there's a ton of synergies as we continue to discuss it between rock and roll and bands and sales and marketing. You think about the marketing that goes in, especially today, it's evolved over the years like content marketing and everything else has. But the principles remain the same. It's about selling tickets. It's about selling merch. It's about all those kind of things for rock and roll. But it's about creating this persona that they have, and each one is unique, and each one has a different voice, literally. And it has a lot to do with sales and marketing, and that was the tie-in, and it gave us a great opportunity to interview great people like you.
Well, thank you. And, of course, I love the fact that you meet at a networking event, but you're not bonding over your work, right? Because nobody does that. No, we don't bond over work. We bond over shared connections. And your shared connection was music, right? And the only way to know that is to put yourself out there and, like he said, and talk about it. And that's when we forge those lasting relationships, like any other relationship, professional or personal. So that makes me so excited to hear that.
You've got so many stories about that. Like the fellow, was it the tie or the socks? No, it was the socks.
Yeah. Socks. Yes.
Well, yeah. So that's a good segue.
Sure.
Tell us your background, how you got here, how you've become a branding and copywriting expert to help people, shine their light out to the world.
Sure. I'll try to make it as short as possible because it could be very long. But I started out in what's called ad sales marketing for television. Now I think it might be called integrated marketing. But back then I was writing marketing content for sales to go out and sell programming. to advertisers. So I got my start in B2B, and this was like printed like sell sheets and one pagers and media kits and all those sort of materials. Then I moved over to a small agency where I was putting brands into consumers' hands. So having to convert to the B2C voice and all types of products. So I worked on every type of brand, product, etc. And then I went freelance in 2015 as just a freelance copywriter. And like many people, when you kind of go out on your own, you're super excited, but you really didn't think about this through. I didn't really have a plan. But I just figured I had enough expertise and enough connections that would kind of help. And it did until it didn't, right? And so I like to say, your well can only go so deep. I wasn't really networking. I wasn't doing any marketing. I was just relying on some of my connections from my previous corporate careers. But really, I was super generic and super forgettable. Danielle Hughes copywriting. I did every type of content for every type of vertical. And, when you appeal to everyone, of course, we appeal to no one. And at some point, people started not knowing what to refer me for. And I felt even worse that I was vetting endless clients that weren't the right fit for me. So I hired a creative coach, and in the process of working with her and coming up with my company, she was the first person to tell me that I needed to put more personality into my website. And, coming out of corporate, it's just not something that you do, right? Everybody's kind of the same. We're all in a similar vein, and it felt very uncomfortable. But her whole approach was, they're going to find out anyway, right? Like when your client talks to you on the phone, they're going to get a sense of who you are. So you might as well tell them up front. And what happened was, the more that I started to put that personality on the page, the more that I started to attract the right types of people, because they were responding to who I was and what I put out there. And then one day I just had this idea for the difference between a personal brand and personality, right? Because personal to me always felt private, and I just never understood why we should have personal brands. But our personality, like we were just talking about, that's what connects us and brings us together, from our background to our shared hobbies to our passions. And when you infuse your personality into your professional message, that's when you build bridges and foster connection. And now I help people infuse more personality into their professional message, whether they're an entrepreneur or an executive.
That's you touched on this earlier too, and I saw this written, I think in LinkedIn with you, and I believe it so much, and that's that people crave humanity and connections. You want connections. You want to be able to say, hey, you know what? We think the same, or we don't think the same, but you've opened me up to a new opinion. How do you typically approach helping someone find their voice through content, and then being able to make that parallel to humanity and connection?
I mean, usually it's already there. They're just afraid. Holding back because we've been instructed over our lifetimes that we don't have a right to express ourselves, or that we'll be punished if we do, or it's not accepted, or any other societal norm BS, right? So most people want to be themselves, but they've been told that they can't. So I think for me, it's like, I do give people permission to do that, and I want that for them. But we also just start talking about their story. And I know that like story and authenticity and all these words seem very like overused these days, but the only thing we own exclusively is our own story, right? Nobody else has it. We all have a different one. And I end up just asking my clients, we connect the dots. Like, what did you love to do growing up? How did you used to think, right? Like, why do you do what you do? And then we find that through line, or that thread that connects the dots between like how they used to think when they were a child and actually how they approach their work now. And then we just start telling the story. And then of course I'm always going to ask, like, what do you do for fun? What lights you up? What are the things that make you most happy? And how do we weave that in as well? And For some people, it's baby steps. Some people are like, only a little bit I'm willing to share. And other people are like, here's 500 things that I love to do and I want to tell everybody everything. So it's finding that balance and that comfort level with the client to see what fits and also what makes sense for where they want to go, who they're communicating to, and how they want to put themselves out there.
So that's good in theory. How does that shake out in practice? Like we talked about the guy who has interesting socks.
Yes.
Give us some
So,
examples of how this
yes.
plays.
Yeah, so I'll give this the story. So Dan was like one of my first clients. I think he was referred to me like through a networking group, and he was in corporate PR for like 3 decades. And he decided he was going to open up a boutique firm. He wanted to go out on his own. And he's telling me that, the day that he decided to hang up his own shingle, his teenage daughter came to him and said, "Dad, can you stop wearing black socks?" And gave him all these fun, crazy socks. So, he's telling me this, and it's like a lovely little anecdote, right? But at the end of the day, what are you going to do with that? But when we think about PR, what's PR? Getting noticed, cutting through the clutter. What happens when you wear like bold socks or something different? You get noticed and you cut through the clutter. So we approached his brand as, we focus on people's socks, like meaning we think differently. And he talks about this story on his website. He talks about how he collects all these fun socks now with like animation and different characters and patterns. And of course, when people reach out to him, they'll say, "Oh my God, I wear crazy ties," or, "I only wear vintage dresses," or "I like to wear big earrings," or whatever it is. And you're starting to, again, build the connection on something personal that opens the door to professional. And at the end of the day, if you're shopping for a PR company, who is more memorable? Every company that just gives you a list of how many impressions and placements you're going to get, or the socks guy?
Stand out.
Yeah.
Purple
So
cow.
it's a small thing, right? So it's like, it's not that personal, but it's just personal enough, right? Now he's a dad. Now he has a daughter. Now he's got a hobby. It's an easy conversation. And I think, Keith, I think we've talked about this too. Like when you start, and you guys know, when you start the conversation on something you enjoy and is fun and more personal, you're relaxed. You don't even think about, "Oh my God, I have to say my elevator speech in a second," or "Oh my God, they're going to ask me this." You're just chilling and having this amazing conversation. And then by the time you get to work, you're so relaxed that you don't even stress about it. And you just go right into, "Yeah, here's what I do." And oh my God, and then the questions, and it becomes more of a conversation as opposed to, "I'm prepared now to give a speech and tell you in 30 seconds everything that I do. And now I'm so nervous that I'm going to mess it all up." So anytime we can start the conversation on something that we can connect on as humans, it just makes you more comfortable in the conversation when it transitions to the professional.
Yeah. It's almost liberating in a way when you can be who you are, be yourself, be able to tell your story. That's something that shouldn't make you nervous. You are who you are.
Yeah, but like it's vulnerable, right, Tom? Like
Yes,
it is like,
absolutely.
will they judge me? Will they, is this thing about me going to make me seem X, Y, and Z, right? We all put out
Absolutely.
these like, always the worst case scenario or the fear again. And it's like, it takes a long time to get comfortable. And I don't care. I'm an extrovert and it still took me a long time. So it
Yeah.
is not like extroverts have this down pat and introverts are going to struggle. It
Right.
really depends on so many factors and how you grew up and what you were encouraged to do and what
Yeah.
industry you're in and who you've surrounded yourself with.
What's interesting is at the beginning of my career, I had produced concerts and events, and there's my rock and roll connection, and I had to stuff it into a suit and cut my hair to get my career going, right? And so
In rock and roll, which is crazy, right?
yeah, and it's I didn't stop going to concerts, but I definitely didn't integrate that side of me with my work side. And then, I look at it now and I go to a Zoom room, and it's been so fun over the last few weeks to when you do breakout sessions in a networking group or in a conference, a group that you belong to, and you say, I've got a podcast and it's sales, marketing, and rock and roll. And at the end, we ask people about their music. I've had twice the room just stopped talking about the assigned a task that we were there, and everyone started talking about their
About their
favorite band.
concerts. Yes, exactly. Right. Because everybody can relate to that. Right. But
Right.
not everybody can relate to sales and marketing. And like at the end of the day, who really wants to talk about sales and marketing? Right. It's boring. It's much more fun to talk about a concert.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get to that with you in a moment. So one of the things I love about you, and I've got a lot to learn here, is how you merchandise yourself. So you do the branding with people, but then you take your own and you put it into practice. Talk about some of the innovative ways that you've taken Danielle, the copywriter, and turned her into the chief personality officer at Morning.
Yeah. So, my former coach talks about like listening to the market a lot. And I think, people think that they do that, but I don't know that they really do. And I think one of the things that I've been good at in this evolution from like just freelancer to where I am now is hearing what people say to me about what they need and not me supposing a service that they would want because I want to give it to them. And so I have been writing my newsletter every other week religiously since I started my business. So we're going on like 5+ years now. And I didn't want to do it because I was like, who needs another newsletter? Like nobody needs another like list of things or things about marketing or things about messaging. But, my coach is like, you're a copywriter. You kind of have to write a newsletter. And I said, okay, I can. So I always think about like, what's the minimum that I can commit to? Because most people do too much and they burn out. So I said, I can't, once a month seems too little. Every week seems way too aggressive. I was like, I'll do every other week, but it has to be like in a way that I'm going to be compelled to write it. And so I said, I'm going to make it more like a blog and it's going to be more like stories. And, if I go back to some of my first probably 6 months of newsletters, I'm sure they were trash. And what's happened over time is I found my voice. And so it might seem like I do a really good job of like messaging or marketing myself, but I think I've just realized my own voice, what I want to say and what people are responding to. And I'm just able now to like put that out in a more authentic, like vulnerable way. And so I've just really been trying to experiment a lot with my business and like push the boundaries a little bit and see what works. And, not everything works. I launched a new program recently and nobody's bought no matter what I do. It's not landing. And it might just be that that's something I want to do and they don't want to do. And then I try other things and, they go off like gangbusters. So it's definitely been an interesting ride, but I think it's find what you can do minimally to commit to and do it regularly. And, Keith, I post on LinkedIn and social 3 days a week. That's also the minimum. That's it. 3 days a week. We're done. And like, it's just enough that people feel like they see you everywhere when maybe they don't really see you everywhere, but it gives that illusion. And at the end of the day, I always say if I'm showing up in someone's inbox and they have not unsubscribed, then they're seeing my name pop up on a regular basis. And it's just that little gentle reminder that when they're ready, I am there to help them.
That's terrific. I am imagining, I don't want to spoil any of your secrets, but,
Okay.
when I was thinking about the merchandising, it was the Vox, or what was
Yes.
it's messaging where you can support people through an app. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's the program that so far is not landed. And maybe it's because I'm a copywriter and people are like, I don't want to talk to you. I want you to write my stuff, right? So this doesn't help me. But Voxer is just a really great app which allows you to do asynchronous communication. So you can pick up your phone and it looks like a voice memo, but you can leave as long of a message as you want. You can ask a question. And my goal was to support people asynchronously, as opposed to when you're in a coaching program and you have to turn up at a certain time every week and you have to be accountable and all of this. This is on your own terms. You're struggling with something. Maybe you're trying to write like your email nurture sequence and you're like, oh, I just can't. I don't know what like the subject line should be, or I'm struggling with this opener, or I don't know what my call to action is. And I thought, people could just talk that to me. And then you can also send materials through Voxer. So you can upload a file. I can make edits for you and send it back to you. But like, we don't have to have dedicated time to do that. It's just on the fly. So much more convenient for people who can't fit it into their schedule.
Do you support people that way on other platforms? Like through text, or I'm wondering.
No, I mean, most of my clients, it's just email or Asana, which is like my, that's like track programs in progress in Asana. But usually it's email. Most my clients cannot text me. I don't allow it. Like that's just, unless they're a friend. I don't want my clients texting me or no. So it's usually just email and Zoom. That's it.
I was wondering maybe if the asynchronous was the right strategy, but the platform, but it's hard to get
Possibly,
people.
right? I mean, and again, we'll see. I'll experiment with it. Luckily, with all these things, I always say it's like, what did I lose? Maybe a little bit of time, but it's not like I've invested so much. It's there in case anybody ever wants it. It's not going to go anywhere. So, I paid someone to do the landing page. And that's how you learn. You're like, okay, this is not resonating. So what can I do instead that's going to be more resonant? And, I do so much speaking and podcasts and things like that I'm always putting myself out there. So potentially someone will hear this and be like, that sounds amazing. I want that. Like, I don't need something else that you might offer. I don't want to be on a Zoom for 90 minutes and have you like write my story. I would rather just have ongoing support when I need it. And so those people are probably out there.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
You mentioned something, Danielle, that just struck me a minute ago, and that's really trying to listen to the market, right? And you gave great examples about listening to your own clients as one of those sources. How else do you become sort of an expert on what the market is trending towards now?
I mean, I think you just have to see, really pay attention and see what, obviously we're all on social, right? So what are the articles popping up on LinkedIn? What are the topics, listening to podcasts and hearing the recurring themes that are coming up about marketing trends or marketplace or what's going on in the financial markets. And then I just talk a lot to my clients. So I joke that I used to think I was just a big pain in the ass. And I have learned that I'm just really curious and I just ask a lot of questions. So when I'm on a consultation call with a client, all the questions, and people really like it because it's like I'm asking things that maybe no one else is asking them, or it makes them think about things in a different way. And I think sometimes if we can't get to the answer, it's because we're not asking the questions, because maybe we're afraid to ask the questions. And I just like to tell people up front, anything I say to you is not personal. If I say anything about any of the stuff you've put out there, this is not about you. This is about I can see ways that we can make this better. And then if I ask you a question, there's a reason for the question, and you don't have to answer it, but it's usually going to help me get to the crux of what are you really here for? Because most people think they want one thing, but we all know that they really need another.
Yeah. So the more you ask, the more you learn.
Exactly. And the more they'll tell you, right? Because it's like therapy. People say, "Oh my God, it's like therapy, it's like coaching." It is, because you get to tell somebody things about yourself. And my clients they might be an executive looking for their next role, or they might be trying to level up, or they're an entrepreneur who can't cut through in the market. And it's okay, what are your goals? What do we want to be doing? And I'm here to help you get there. That is my job. So, it's we're all on the same side. I'm here to be on your team. let me be your champion. And I can't do that just like a therapist if you're holding back, right? You have to be honest with me. You have to tell me, and then we're going to make this work together. Yeah.
That's really interesting that you dig into questioning and how that turns into being perceived as, therapeutic. It's 20 years ago. It's what I love is the discovery, because what you're doing is helping people see the future, right? These questions are helping them get to where they want to go. And I did a launch several years ago, and the CEO said, "Oh, it's Thursday, time for my marketing therapy." And that is now a service on our website, right?
Oh my God, I love it.
We have a 90-day startup, we have a marketing help desk, and we have marketing therapy. If you don't know what you want to do, we're here to literally listen and turn it into something that's actionable.
I love that. And that goes back to even if they do think they know what they want, they don't really, right? And like the therapy is what brings out the true struggle, pain point, need, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And I found another way to
Well,
think about it. It's like physical therapy. Something's broken, something's not working, right?
Mm,
So we come in and we have a diagnostic and we figure out what it is, and then we develop a program to go forward.
yeah. What were you going to say, Tom?
well, we would love to transition at this point too. And there's so much to talk about with you. It could go on for 3 hours. So I really appreciate your insights. But part of our theme and part of our voice is rock and roll.
Yeah.
That's how Keith and I connected. And as Keith described, that's one of the commonalities between us, and it's one of the parallels we make to sales and marketing. So, with that being said, who are some of your favorite bands, and do you have any stories that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So I know we were talking about this earlier. I personally, I don't like the word favorite because I think it's so hard to like narrow down like, your loves or whatnot. But things that have like marked on my brain
Mm.
in terms of music. U2, the Joshua Tree was my very first arena concert. So, full disclosure, I had seen the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean when I was like 7 because my dad was really into the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean. And like the Beach Boys had a Hawaiian drummer at some point, and we went to see them at a really small venue on Long Island. And he called me up on stage and gave me one of the drumsticks. And I was like, literally like a tiny little child.
Right.
And I'm so mad because like I think I came home, threw the drumstick in like the toy chest, and it's gone. I mean, I don't know where it is. It's in the wind. So I feel really badly. But when I was 15 for my Sweet 16, my aunt treated me to seeing U2 the Joshua Tree at Madison Square Garden. And that was my first big show, and it was so great. And then 30 years later, when they came back a few years ago and they did the 30-year reunion, they played the whole album again. I went again. And so it was like a very like full circle moment, like kind of bookending like the first half of my life, as I like to say, because I plan to live to 100. So yeah,
There you go.
super memorable.
And did you see him at Madison Square Garden?
Both times. Yep. Yeah. So, so that one. And then I worked at Jones Beach, which is a big, beach out here also on Long Island. And we worked at the concession stand, but every summer, the Jones Beach Theater would have concerts. And, back then concerts were like $20 or whatever it was, like very cheap. And we would see 10 concerts every summer easily. And we were really into like, alternative, like punk, new music. So this was like REM, New Order, like the B-52s, the Sex Pistols, INXS, Depeche Mode, Erasure, Howard Jones, all of it. And so, I mean, all of them. Thompson Twins, you name it, we probably saw them play at Jones Beach. So I feel like that's also a soundtrack.
Depeche Mode played in the concert series I worked on, and almost got into a fight in the in the green room after the show. It was a crazy night.
With one of them, like with Martin or David,
With
or
Martin and the head of security.
oh, were you too close to him? You're like back away from the challenge.
I had to step between them.
Oh, he was getting into a fight with his own head of security?
No, our head of security and him.
Oh, interesting.
He was not listening.
Okay, well, it's not surprising. He was probably on 700 different types of things as well, so he probably couldn't listen, to his credit.
But that's a great era of music to
Yeah.
come of age.
Yeah, I miss like WLIR was like the radio station that everybody listened to, and then of course because radio is dead, it went away years ago, but that was like the perfect epitome of like new wave music. Now I think you listen to alternative music and it's like more metally, and this was like true like everything synthesizer. Everything synthesizer.
Right. That's
That
right.
80s, early 90s sound. And then
Yes,
that kind of took a hit when the Seattle grunge sound came on.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
new wave sort of transitioned into grunge. You're right.
Yeah. And I have a lot of friends that are like big, huge, like Pearl Jam fans and Nirvana. And like, I like those bands too. And like Foo Fighters, who I'm actually seeing this summer. But like, there's just nothing that will replace the music that you really grew up on. And like, that was that sweet spot for me of like early to mid, late 80s and like maybe a little early 90s. So yeah, it's very nostalgic. So, and I know you mentioned you both met talking about Boston. I've never seen Boston, but to be honest, like if I don't ever see them, it's not going to really impact me.
Well, and that's the thing about music. It's that emotional connection. For me, Boston was being on the gymnastics team, and I had gotten a boombox for Christmas, and I showed up, and that was the year that Boston was all over the radio. And I had my boombox, and I show up to gymnastics, and everybody thought I was so cool because I was bringing the music in, and I got to go see them in concert. It's like,
Oh my God.
but we all bring our own time to this, and very much like the guy that wears socks, right? It's really personal.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I like their music, but they're not on the bucket list for me.
I could just see that.
Yeah. So,
But,
and who's left for you guys bucket list?
Oh, that's a great question. They're probably dead at this point.
Okay, living. Anybody living that you still have not seen that you're like, and maybe they're never going to tour again, but I don't know.
Well, we talked about it earlier too, and that's the Rolling Stones. And Keith is going through. You've seen them.
I've seen them a few times. Yeah.
Seeing them, a few times. Yeah. And Keith is seeing them 3 times.
Twice. I got 3 more this summer.
Yeah, you're going to see them 3 more times.
We're actually going to do the show from the road.
Yes.
Oh my God, you should do it from the parking lot.
That's a great idea. Now I feel compelled to go.
Yeah.
Maybe we go together and do a special live performance.
We're going to try and park the van nearby for the Denver one. So yeah, if you're coming to the Denver show, I'll let you know where we're hanging out.
So what's the thought? Like, I'm always interested in this. Like, why are you seeing the same band 3 times in the same window? Like, what's the thought process behind this?
We're just having a lark. My girlfriend and I have a van, a camper van, and we got it last year, and the Stones were coming on, and it was like, well, we have to go to Chicago. So we just planned that trip then. And we've got some friends that we're going to go with there. And then she has a friend in Phoenix that we're going with. And then we got Denver. And it just seemed like a great thing to do with our van, summer vacation.
Building the trip around the concerts. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We'll be traveling for about 4 or 5 days for each of them.
And I'll tell you that it's another great question. And I'll tell you why I see the Grateful Dead as much as I do and have over the years is because no 2 shows are ever the same.
Yes, with the Dead. I don't know about the Rolling Stones though.
Right. No, I don't. I'm just speaking of the Dead. It's one of the reasons that's sort of kept me so interested over the decades is because you don't know what you're going to get at any given show, and
Yeah.
every single show is different. So you think, to your question, why would you see him 3 nights in a row? Why would you see him, 50 times or whatever? Because they're all unique in their own way, and that's cool to me.
Think about it. It's become a big thing to go get the set list, right? To be able to
Right,
get this,
Yes.
get
And
that
well,
at a
now
show.
it's all online, right? Now it's like you go
right.
to a concert and you can be like, okay, what's the set list? And you like know what to expect, which I'm a control freak a little bit. So I do like to know what I'm going to hear and like check the list and make sure that they are singing the things that I think are going to be on the list.
Yep.
But of course I do like a surprise song or two, like always. But,
Yeah.
but
Well,
then
the
you,
other one I'm looking forward to is Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, and Billy Strings.
no, I can't listen to Bob Dylan. No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Brilliant songwriter,
Yeah.
should never open his mouth. That's I'm
Well,
sorry.
the other thing about rock and roll is it brings out the strong opinions in people.
Yes. But
Yeah.
Willie Nelson is a bucket list. I would let him and Dolly Parton. I would love to see Dolly Parton for
Mhm.
sure. I missed her. She came to Forest Hills Stadium, which is near my house, a few years ago, and I was not able to go, and I am really mad about it. So
She's quite a icon. I am excited about seeing Billy Strings, though.
I don't know
He's
who
a,
that
he's
is.
a he's a new prodigy.
He
Okay.
is.
Billy
Yeah, I've seen him a
Strings.
few times.
Check him
Billy
out.
Strings, young
It's-
kid,
Yep.
but just an absolute prodigy on guitar. Can play
Guitar.
any
Is he
type.
country?
He's almost bluegrass, but he
Yeah.
then brings it into a psychedelic Grateful Dead.
Oh.
And I think one of the things I most respect about him is that he's bringing out the old music, the folk bluegrass music, and
Mhm.
bringing it to a new generation and melding it with another genre. And it's very creative. And he's just the nicest guy.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Okay.
check him out.
Yeah, I do like bluegrass. Like it is, just something you could just, that's like just chill, right? I don't need to even know the lyrics or the words or any of it. I can just sit and enjoy the music as
Yep.
opposed to other groups where you feel like you're tied to the lyrics.
Mm.
I think with a lot of like bluegrass, it's more about the sound than it is anything else.
Well, they're a jam band, so their
Yeah.
songs are 10 minutes long, and you just are into the flow of the music. It's not really occupying your frontal lobe.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
Exactly.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing um, your professional side, and I hope our audience, as we share this out, gets some benefit from it. Why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can come to my website, which is morethanwordscopy.com. And I hang out on LinkedIn all the time, which is Danielle Hughes. So those are probably the two easiest places to find me. And yeah, feel free to say hi, connect. Tell me who's on your bucket list. I want to know.
Yeah,
That's
there you go.
the rock and roll bucket list.
All right, love
Yeah.
it.
That's right. Put it in the comments.
There you go. Put it in the comments. So amazing. Thank you both so much. This was lovely.
Thank you. Learned a lot. Got a lot of great opinions and insights, and I'm sure the viewers will appreciate it as well.
That's right. So let your flag fly.
There you go. There you go. Go check out Keith at the Rolling Stones tour this summer.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you, and everybody make it a great day.
Cheers.